We're here today in beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah, and we're meeting a very special person, Dave Ulrich. Guy basically defined human resources for the past couple of decades. We've picked a car, and I have to admit, the 9055 Oldsmobile was kind of jab at him being outdated, but since that I've had the privilege to look into his stuff more, and I have to say, actually, Dave's pretty much on message what the future of organizations is, and maybe there's a lot of stuff that's been misunderstood about the HR business partner concept. So I'm absolutely thrilled to take him out there in this old rocket of a car with its V8 and 200 horsepower and drum brakes. I'm terrified. And discuss why our organizations today still as outdated as this, even though we are in an electrical, distributed, sharing economy day and age. So join me for this ride. Dave Ulrich, it's gonna be a blast, and this is gonna be a real treat. I feel young. Oh yeah. Up and away!
Look at this. Have you ever driven one of these before?
No, it's like a living room on wheels.
Oh, look at my wife. Wendy, this is Heiko.
Somebody's done a nice job here.
Who is it? Man, somebody has spent a lot of time and money.
And actually, they said they didn't spend much on it. Is this original condition? They didn't change anything about it.
Oh my goodness.
Have a good time.
I'll see you later today, sweetie. Thanks, sweetie. I haven't called you sweetie in my whole life. All right.
But now it's immortalized.
Now I'm going to call you sweetie. Oh, I'm so delighted. This is so cool. Oh, wow.
All right.
All right.
This is cruising, isn't it?
Oh, this is cool. When did you last have a wing mirror or a wing window?
You know, my first car was a VW Beetle.
Oh, really?
And
my first was a 62 Ford Fairlane.
And they had these sailplane things because you have no air conditioning, you have nothing, so the only airflow you get is from these things, right?
Yeah.
So the thing about old cars is there's always something that breaks. So the glove box popped open on me, so I've kind of jerry-rigged this. But
that's fun. This is so cool. So why this car? It's big, that's one reason. Why this car?
Well, you know, I think that you asked me yesterday, so people who are joining us now don't know that we had dinner yesterday and we had a little bit of a getting to know each other because previously we did not know each other at all. And you asked me what is the biggest problem that I see out there right now? Or what's the discussion amongst young people? I think something like this, what you asked me, right?
Yep.
And I think my feeling is that organizationally, the way organizations are set up, we are still sitting in a 9055 Oldsmobile in a world that's going electric.
Great comment.
Right.
So there's a mismatch between what the organization is providing and what the environment requires.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we've been writing a little bit. The context is king. That you got to know the context for the setting. And the context is change and technology and all this stuff. And the organizations have to find a way to provide that. And I know that's the work you've been passionate about as well as we.
Just for context, what happened to me back then was I was so dismayed with the state of HR that I left. I went to a management role at eBay in customer service. I was like, I don't want to have anything to do with HR anymore. After I'd seen what HP had done, you used this brilliant metaphor of go straight here or
straight. We go straight.
HR being the architect of the organization, right? And at HP they were architects.
Yeah.
Qualified and on eye level, right? With the managers. Rest of the industry where what I saw was HR was administrative, they had no clue of the business, they couldn't even give you the stock price or the time of day. But they were demanding a seat at the table. And I was like, well, earn it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but then I was like, why fight it? I'll do what I want to do out of a management position. But then I got an offer from a company in Frankfurt, which used to be Europe's hottest video game company, and they said, do you want to run our HR department? Because we're scaling up rapidly and we don't want to fall in the same traps as all the other companies, that they become a bureaucracy and stuff. So can we do this differently? And I said, well, there is this company, HP, that did it differently, but it will require you to think differently about the management as well. HR doesn't happen in isolation.
Yep.
And I said, a lot of what we're going to do is going to
So we go left at that next left, where those kids are.
A lot is going to be looking back into the past, like the HP way, W.L. Gore, companies that have a very different modus operandi.
I hope this car makes it.
And it was, and I think this is what you said your next book will be about, is see the company as an ecosystem in which the gamers, the customers are integral part of it.
Yep.
Because the employees are gamers and they're selling their games that they love to people who are also gamers. So it's almost seamless. The borders of the organizations are fluid, right?
Yeah.
So we created this peer committed ecosystem, but nothing I knew about HR helped me. There was not a book that helped me design this. So I was reaching out to people from Semco, from W.L. Gore, and I was like, I need your help, guys. Everything I'm touching here, I'm doing wrong, it seems, and there's no reference. I feel like I'm bumbling my way forward. And they were like, cool, that's how that is.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah,
that's how that's gonna
boy,
work.
I share that experience.
There's no template, right?
Yeah.
But I got so frustrated because at the same time...
That really helps me understand your frustration. Well, I really relate with your not finding answers in current literature. I think you had that experience, and it was framing, it was shaping your world. I had one. I was doing a leadership training program for a senior team. The company was called Borg Warner. It was probably in the mid '80s. I was a new professor. And I was
transmissions, the heavy duty stuff?
Yeah, the heavy duty stuff. And they own security. They own 4 or 5 companies. They owned about 4 companies, an insurance firm. And I'd worked to get this day with them. We're in Chicago. We started at 8 o'clock. We took a break at 9:30, and everybody got on a cell phone, a big, long cell phone, the old ones.
Yeah.
And
bricks,
with the stem, and you'd hide it because you didn't want to be showy. Irwin Jacobs was a greenmail takeover artist. He'd go to 4.9% of your stock, which was not public, and then he jumped to 15, trying to greenmail you to buy him back. Mm-hmm. At 9 o'clock that morning, Chicago time, he bought their stock. He went from 4.9 to 15. We come back into the room, and the executives say, Dave, we really think you're wonderful, but we got to respond to a takeover artist, and we now got 24 hours. Mm-hmm. Your lecture on leadership and coaching and warm, friendly stuff just got put aside. Help us with this problem. And I said, I don't know how. And so I went home that weekend. I said, let me get back to you on Monday. And I went to the academic literature. Where's the articles that will help me fight a takeover? Yeah. Not one. And it suddenly hit me that, and we turn right here, and this goes up. Oh, I hope we make it up this hill. Ha! This is going to be, we're not light guys, so we may end up pushing, or we can roll down. And I hope you can manage it. But this is fun.
Is this when speed limits become aspirational?
Yeah, I like it. It becomes the hope. So it hit me that the most interesting problems in business are not what the academics study. They're studying problems that are out there for 10 or 15 years. And so they invited me back the next week, and I had to go create a leadership agenda for responding to this incredible, aggressive takeover artist. And it hit me, that's what I want to do. I want to be out on the leading edge of ideas to which there are no articles. And that was Hewlett Packard, your father's gracious comment. Pete Peterson and Bob Parrish and some of these great HP folks, they were creating stuff with no roadmap.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's fun. Give me a big, messy problem. And I've had those most of my career. Big, messy problems where there's not a menu, there's not a recipe.
There's no template, right?
There's no template. And I like that. It sounds like you like that too.
Dave, I was thrown into it. I didn't have a choice. So, but then I developed a taste for it, right? My dad never framed HR from an HR perspective, but you would call it the outside in, right? He said, we make calculators that help the space shuttle land safely on Earth.
Nice.
And we create a culture in which people can do that.
Nice. line we've used is that, this is so cool. This is so cool. And we may have to call a rescue truck. I mean, HR is not about HR. That's
exactly.
I mean, and it's always interesting when I do seminars. I ask people, so who are the customers of HR? And still today, 50 to 60% say the employees. No, the customer of HR is the customer of the business. I mean,
but this is something, and Dave, I think I projected my anger on you, and I always wanted to know, maybe just the business partner concept is misunderstood, because that was always my thinking, to say, you have to think about the person who goes into the shop and chooses the product, not the business.
The exact opposite.
But the thing that follows from that is HR needs to have an opinion. I don't want you to slavishly follow the business. I want you to have an opinion on what that customer needs.
It's interesting. We go crosshairs because we don't talk. But people use this, HR should be the trusted advisor. And I'm going, no, I want you to be a credible activist.
Yeah.
A business leader doesn't want you to just come in the room and be a sycophant. They want you to come in the room and disagree, and to have, not to disagree in public and to be a pain, but they want you to have a point of view. This is what we need to do to win. And in fact, I feel strongly about that. If companies don't win in the marketplace, there's no right to have anything with people. Because if you don't win, there's no well-being to be had. And
you were talking yesterday about a mentor of yours, CK
Prahalad.
And you say it was CK and the Pips.
It was.
But you said something great.
Yeah,
I don't want to make the bridge.
I'll capture it.
You said, when he's nice to me, it means he doesn't really respect my thinking. If he pounds it, it means he respects it, and with the pounding opens the glove box.
And for those who have followed management, CK is, and Gary Hamel, I hope, would have the same. We genuflect emotionally and intellectually. And CK came to me and said, do you have a point of view? And I said, I know research. And he said, I don't want to know research. I want to know your point of view so I can disagree with you. And I finally created some points of view, and he did disagree. So, and CK said that respect is more important than simply affection. I like a lot of people, but I want to be respected, and I feel that about HR people. I want good HR people to not be HR-y. I want them to go in and say, here's what we have to do to win in the business community.
And the thing is, so good HR means fighting, right? It means friction. It doesn't mean, yes, sir. Hey, but she's done fine by us so far.
I am so impressed. I am so impressed. This car went up this big mountain. Actually, I think we maybe should have gone that way. But
I think Gary Hamel would agree with us that a lot of the companies, they're succeeding despite their organizational model, not because of it.
I agree.
Right? So we took a page out of Elon Musk's playbook. And he's an engineer, right? And he says basically what we do too much in the world today is we work by analogy, and that's where we become derivative. So we always compare to this, and then it's iterative, right? Whereas like if you want to be disruptive, what you do is you look at the first principles of things, at the most basic components, and see can they be changed or rearranged, and then something truly novel will come out. So we're trying to look at the first principles of organizations, and those where we think there's winning organizations. So if you look at the HPs or the WA goals, sustainably engaging their people, first principle is if you give people a choice, they will act responsibly. Like if you give them an honest, would you do this or that, or you have a say in the how and the what, they will do that diligently. They will act responsibly. Second principle that goes with that is give people full access to information, because to make quality choices, you need quality information.
Yep.
So don't create layered access to information. Give as much as you can, compliance-wise, full access to information. And the third one is keep things small. Team sizes, tasks, whatever you call it, agile, the size of units, all that, because that retains humanity, what you would today call agile or something like that. So those were the three building blocks, and we said now we need to translate those into actual manifested features that train behaviors. So the very first feature that we built into this network software was if you want to do anything, let's say I had approached you digitally via this network platform, you would have gotten an invite in your email that says, Heiko is asking you to contribute to Leaders in Cars Getting Coffee, Dave. For Resourceful Humans, this is a silver priorities. Would you commit to this? It would take from you a day of your time in June, nothing else. Would you commit? And then you get a choice, reject or commit. If you commit, you're in it. If you reject, you're not. We then visualize these relationships and we show who in the organization is working on what with whom. So how many people are working in this ecosystem on gold, silver, bronze? And how does it tie up to distributors, partners, customers? So suddenly you see the organization as an ecosystem and how it meshes with other ecosystems. But the feature is you get to decide up front, do you want to be part of this? And then you can say, I don't have enough information, Heiko. You know, I've read these 2 LinkedIn posts from you and honestly they were kind of dickish, so I don't feel inclined to do it. Ask me nicely, then maybe I'll do so. Or give me an article so I know what I'm getting myself into. Based on this information, I will say no, right? So we actually want people to push back and make critical decisions, which right now in organizations, my feeling is it goes through the hierarchy, and if my bosses ask me nicely, I have to say yes.
Let me agree with you've got responsibility, information, and simplification, yes, which I love. And what all of that does is it makes the employee an agent, if you use the agency idea. I become an agent and make choice and take responsibility. And I'm going to come back and push in a minute, but the place that gets played out, Marshall Goldsmith is a wonderful thinker. One of the things he's done is he's taken the engagement questions. Do I have a best friend at work? Do I like my boss? Do I get paid well? And he's put in front of all of those a phrase, did I do my best to have a best friend at work, build a relationship with my boss, to earn my pay? And when he puts that agency, did I do my best to, or do I do my best to, suddenly what he's finding is those questions have a high correlation with positive outcomes. So it's not Gallup, do you have a best friend at work? It's did I do my best? Mm-hmm. And so I'm agreeing with your agency. The place I tweak it is you ended with customers, and I'd probably begin with customers. Not today's customers, but maybe future customers. Because how do I know I have the right responsibility? How do I know I have the right information? How do I know I've done the right simplification? It's something that will create value for those outside the organization. And value doesn't have to be today's customer, because if I build for today's customer and they change, I'm in trouble. But where I love to start this virtuous cycle, if you will, is by saying, given the market we're playing in, what do we need to be able to do as an organization? What sets the... It's so fun to be in a place where there's enormous construction, and people will know watching this is not scripted, because we would not drive through this. But what I'd love to have people think about is, for example, culture. This is where I think the HP way is not the culture, because I think culture begins with, what do we at HP want to be known for in testing an instrument, in watchmaking?
Our contribution.
And that's the outside in logic for me. You ended with it. I would probably start with it.
That's it, by the way.
Oh, that's not at all.
Food for thought drive-through cafe.
I am so thrilled. I've never been here before, so I live.
I'm glad that we can do something.
You're doing something new for me. That's value to me. See,
right?
Services, and we have a park, and we have. Anyway, that's the only place where I might start a little bit of I want to end up in the same place. I want to connect responsibility, RIS, responsibility, information, and simplicity. I really want to connect them with agency, but I want the agency to be the right agency. I don't know if you followed GE at all, and they're in more trouble today because of a bunch of stuff, but Welch went in, he said, bureaucracy just kills me. Yeah. And he did a program called Workout. We could talk more about that, but we discovered there were 5 things that created bureaucracy. Reports, we fill out reports. We found that usually less than a third were ever used. Yeah. So you spend hours filling out a talent report or a workforce plan and nobody uses it. Approvals. In fact, what we found is if there were more than 4 approvals, the quality of decision went down. If you have 7 approvals and you're the first person, you go, those 6 people have so much more knowledge than me. I'm not going to get in the way. If you're the 7th person, you go, what am I going to do? Stop there. And so quality actually declines. Reports, approvals, meetings. measures, we keep tracking stupid stuff, policies and procedures. We said, we call it RAMP. Those things create bureaucracy, and you got to get rid of them. And they keep bubbling back. And the metaphor that, and again, Welch was smarter than all of us combined. He said, you got to clear the field. You got to get rid of this junk so that you can create something new. And that was a big project. How do you do that systemically with 200,000 employees? How big was your game company when you went in there?
I went in with 200 and came out with 1,000 in the space of 5 years.
And I mean, that's huge growth. To be honest, that's still, I call
tiny.
I call it, I don't know if they have this where you grew up in Germany or in Los Angeles. In a country fair, they have bumper cars where you get in a car and you bump each other. This car would, by the way, be a great bumper car.
I think the owner would disagree.
Yeah, I know. We should do that, and then you're going to be absolutely broke.
Before we go on, let's go and get some.
Good. But the bumper cars is when you have 200 people, you all bump into each other.
Yeah.
How do you do it with 200,000? By the way, this is so good. I want to thank you. What a cool.
I'm glad you like the experience.
You know, I scratched this a little. No, I did not scratch it. This is just such a cool car. Such a cool.
I'm glad we made a good choice. So remember what we're trying, again, the learning from the video games industry is that every feature teaches a behavior, but it should not teach it in your face. It should be subliminal.
Okay.
Positively manipulative.
So did your developers, were they not addicted, were they consumers of the games? Did
Yes.
they? Yeah. Tencent has Supercell.
Yeah.
And one of the things Supercell has done is, if you're going to be a developer, you got to be a player.
So that was one of the pivotal insights for me, calling out the obvious in the organization. So we were creating a game that was going to be the game that makes or breaks the company. And it had, at the time, I mean, this is almost 10 years ago now, multiplayer was coming, right? So like you have the big Fortnite trend right now.
Okay.
So we were programming a game, and to give you an idea, to make a video game now is 250 people, 3 years, with a budget of 50 to 60 million euros. It's like you're making a 25-hour movie, right?
Yeah.
Highly complex, highly specialized. And we were creating this multiplayer part, and during the lunch breaks, our people jumped on a competitor's product called Left 4 Dead, and they were playing in their lunch break, like, oh, I got you, oh my God, I just had you. And we were sitting there, and I mean, most of us in the shared services, we were non-gamers. We tried to get ourselves into that world, but we were all noobs. You considered rookies, right? Yeah. And I asked, how come you're playing the competitor's game, multiplayer game, and not ours?
When you have a choice.
When you have a choice. And they're like, it's better. I'm like, okay, have you told that to the management that there's a game that you prefer playing that you would rather buy than the one that we're making? No, there's no space for that. And I'm like,
good.
Who do I need to get in a room to address the obvious,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then we tried to shift it to say, look guys, our goal here is you should be wanting to play
We don't want to
our
build a
game.
network. We want to build a network that creates something that excites customers.
Because then investors will be interested, then customers will be interested. But if you're not interested in it first, it's all mute.
Nice.
So you were asking me.
Well, at McDonald's, I'm sorry, it's a
Yeah.
quick, and McDonald's is an incredible success the last 2 years. Longer story.
Also revamping into more green space, right?
Oh, well, what happened is their stock and their performance was flat for 5 or 6 years. Brilliant insight. You bring in a new executive team. He did the first thing executives do. He did turnaround. He cut costs, cut menus, simplified, and the stock went up 20%. And then it went flat. And that's the danger. Gary talks about denominator, numerator management. That's denominator management. So he says, what do I got to do to get another 20%? And what they discovered is you got to grow the top line. You got to grow. You got to reshape the firm. And so they started everything they did through customers. What is it we can do that's innovative that customers will see? So the example, long story to get to where you are, in the example. When you come into a McDonald's, they used to say, we want you as the employee to smile at the customer. Welcome. They said, that's not it. The key is that the customer smiles back. And until we can train you how to get the customer to smile back, we have not created customer satisfaction. We can get you to smile. That's not hard. But you got to learn how to get the customer to smile back. It's that same kind of, it's not that we build a network and we have good HR systems. It's that we have systems so that the customers will have a better experience when they come into the store.
The impact of it all.
The
right?
impact, yeah. Or investor. So what we've done is we've said, you want to go build a leadership training program. That's great. How will what you train, I've got to not touch this for the camera. How will what you train give investors more confidence in your future earnings? In other words, if an investor saw your competence model, your training program, your development experience, would they say, you are doing the stuff that will give me more confidence in this company's future? That simple tweak gets you down a different path. It's not about competencies. Final example, and this is the stuff I just feel passionate about because I don't understand it all yet, but I'm learning. We do a training program, you do training programs. People write, what do you want to learn about? Executive comp. What do you want to learn about? Succession planning. What do you want to learn about? Workforce planning. Great. And then we say, no, that's all inside the company. And again, I love simple solutions. Go up and put 2 words behind it, so that. I want to learn about executive comp. So that what? If there's no so that links to a customer or an investor or a community, why do I care? My hope is HR, I mean, again, I don't want to be an apologist for HR, but I hope HR people rise to that opportunity because because if they don't do it, who does it?
In Germany, it's not the top talent that comes to HR. You usually, if you don't succeed in the business, you go into HR. The top talent from the university is not aspiring to go into HR, and it's a problem. The funnel is not right.
Is it changing at all?
I don't see it.
You know, it's interesting. We did and we didn't do German companies. So we went to Korn Ferry, and they have I should have a little chart. Let me find my little Post-it notes. We went to Korn Ferry, and they have tons of data. I mean, that's the search firm. And they had data on the top CEOs on 15 dimensions. So they have a competence model with 15 dimensions, and they say, here's the best CEOs. I should have a pen. Here's the best CEOs on these 15 dimensions, and this is their profile, and it's the top 10%. And again, percentages are tricky, but it was salary controlling for a bunch of stuff. And because they had so much data, they then compared that with chief marketing officers, chief financial officers, chief information officers, and chief HR officers. Mm-hmm. And they looked again at the top 10%. They said, if you're in the top 10% of pay, given the size of your company, your industry, the profile that matched the closest to the top CEOs was the head of HR, which was a shock. I mean, you would have thought marketing. We also did COO, and by the way, COO matched closest because he or she is number 2. But everybody thought, why would it be the head of HR? And here's what we discovered. We didn't publish this piece. When we did the 50th percentile, the median employee, HR had the biggest gap. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I think I'm starting to see is at the top of HR, your dad, and there are others in Germany, Thomas, I can't remember his last name.
Sattelberger. Yeah.
Sattelberger, I'm sorry, in his day, may have been there. The top HR people in the top companies seem to be doing things that reflect good executive decision making. The average HR people, there's a gap. And so one of the issues I struggle with is, where do I then teach? I don't want to teach to the average, I want to teach to the top. And what I've discovered is that 20% of the HR people are getting it. They understand business, they're getting it. 20 to 30% never will. I used to try to convert the unconvertible. Let's go convert the worst possible.
It doesn't work. It frustrates you, it frustrates them.
And you've just wasted a bunch of resource. I now have limited energy. I don't want to spend time with the top 10 to 20%. I mean, it would be stupid for somebody in HR to be your coach. I mean, that's a waste of time. You're close enough, and if you screw up, they're not going to help you. I want to spend time with that middle 60%, and I want to help them move. That's my optimism. And let me give an example at Tencent. You have those cells, you have the platform, then you have the cells. It's, to some extent, the connection between and among the cells that makes the whole more than the parts.
Yes.
Clay Christensen, and I'll probably get in trouble with this, he says you innovate when you create these autonomous independent cells and let them go disrupt. The dilemma is, unless they're connected to each other, you get in the US Saturn, they go off and build a car, but they didn't change GM.
And it's anarchy, it's not networked, right?
No, it's not networked, and they're not connected to each other. And so I think the challenge is, how do you create those autonomous cells, not as a holding company? And we said that there's 4 lines: external information, which is anticipating what the market may look like, social, political trends; customer obsession, not going after market share, but customer anticipation; innovation everywhere. So what did you do in cell number 2 about your business model? What did you do about next generation product design? And cell number 3 is agility. How did you overcome factors for change? So we've said there's 4 ecosystem network capabilities. And now I'm going to bore you to death. This is our new book. And there's 6 governance mechanisms. So how do you build those? Culture, talent, you got to move people, you got to make them agents, all that stuff. Ideas, you got to be free with ideas. Information, radical transparency, blunt information. Accountability. I think HR get all screwed up. You don't want an appraisal system, but you got to have accountability. I mean, there is clear accountability. And then collaboration. And we've said this seems to be what Tencent does. It's got a platform with cells that have capabilities in the ecosystem and then have governance to make it work.
So what would be your advice to me? Because I'm saying what I want, I don't want the success of our company to come down to good decisions by me, but the decision-making capability in our organization, right? And I'm trying my best to get that in, but I can see myself also oftentimes falling into this, well, I got it more figured out than you guys kind of dilemma. And then I'm always on the, should I not?
What are the principles? You said you try to govern with 2 or 3. What are the 2 or 3 principles governing that? I mean, it's a great case. How do I replace myself?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a complicated question. It's a great question. What are the principles behind that?
Well, if you look at the first principles, it would be, can they make good choices? Do
For
they feel
what? For what? And let me push you. For the future, not the past.
Yes.
I don't want to replace somebody with me. I want to replace somebody for what I think the single biggest problem, I've sat through a lot of succession meetings, is they look at the person, not the requirements of the position. So a principle for your team is to say, where will we be as a company in whatever period of time? You know, what are the customers, what are the market opportunities? And it's fuzzy, but what then will be the requirements of the leader? So that would be one principle.
So on that notion, what I've done is I've looked at the model of the video games, right? Where what happens is that you have a creative guy, the creative director, in charge of the first part of the game because you want to make it an engaging game. And then usually it's the team manager who takes over and delivers the game in time and in budget. The problem is that the creative guy never knows when to stop because there will always be another idea, and that's why games creep and never come out. So we had a very deliberate process of saying, on a given day, you hand the baton to that guy, and then you're not in charge anymore. You're not leading this team anymore. You can say something, but they feel free to ignore you. So what I've thought is, we have so many great ideas in the pipeline. I'm in the way now because I'm the one more idea guy. So I've told my COO, Angela, you're CEO from now. You will bring these ideas to maturity, to scale. And I need to step back because if I don't, I will break the company. I will not get the Model 3 into production, right? That's not me. But it was hard.
So if I take a back step, today we have a process for concept to commercialization of a game.
Yep.
It's too slow. It has too many handoffs. It has too many passive batons. In the future, we need a leader who has the ability to shorten that cycle time from concept to commercialization. I don't even know what the answer is. In fact, if you knew the answer, you'd do it. And you say, I want to replace myself with somebody who brings that discipline, which is really helpful because it's not a creativity discipline, it's an execution discipline. So my first principle is, I replace myself not with a person, but with a set of business requirements. That's an important one, I think. 2, am I willing to transfer my leadership equity? Well, 2, can I get a pool of candidates who I give experience to? So I think one of the great questions when I coach leaders is, what do you think? What do you think? And when you ask that of your COO or 2 or 3 other possible candidates, is number one, they probably have ideas they've thought about more than you, but you're also trying to discover their thought process. Are they able to create new solutions? Are they able to break barriers? So number one, look at the position. Number two, really get a pool of candidates who think differently. And then number three, when you've picked the candidate, transfer leadership equity. What that means is back off, and it's so hard to do.
So here's my wrap-up question for you, Dave. What we're investing in right now, probably like every other tech company on the planet, is we're thinking about AI. You've told me that you're doing a lot of thinking right now around China and the rise of interesting companies in China, right? I would argue that AIs will be a reflection of the cultures, organizations that they spring from. So an AI from China will be and act very different than an AI from a Google, a European company, whatever it may be. Would you agree with that so far?
Don't know. I think I would have agreed with it a long time ago. But what we have found in our work is if you're going to play in the global market, you got to meet global standards. That if you try, my example is Eddie the Eagle, the Olympic ski jumper. He's the best ski jumper in England, but he's not global. And I think in today's world, if you're going to compete just in China, you can play in that space. But the minute you say, I don't want to compete in China, I want to compete all over Asia, I want to compete in India, I want to compete in Vietnam, I want to compete in Latin America, I think then you move to a global standard.
Okay.
That's a tricky one. We were working with a Korean company, and they started exporting their Korean management philosophy to Brazil. Didn't work.
So what we're trying to do now is we've created an AI called Amy. We've both acknowledged that our significant others are way smarter than us, so I thought it would be a smart move to give our AI a female.
That's your wife.
Yeah.
Good move.
The idea of Amy is the following. Amy will have full transparency on everything that's happening in the network, every decision, every health, every money decision, everything, all the moving parts of the organization. Plus, we're putting people in a VR simulation called the Dive, where there's engineering, navigation, tactical weapons, and a captain's chair. And you're under with the goggles, and you're playing the game, and we put you, I don't know, you know Star Trek?
Yeah.
There's this scenario, leadership scenario,
I can't
called
believe.
Kobayashi Maru. Basically,
Okay.
it's an unbeatable scenario. It's a character test. You can't win it. With competing priorities. Cross the neutral zone to save the ship full of helpless, drifting refugees. But if you cross the line, you will spark international war. What are you going to do, right? So the AI watches how the team performs, how they deal with paradoxical situations, how they communicate, what their decision-making pattern is, and then as a colleague in the system will offer this kind of advice in the form of questions back to everybody in the organization. So to say, based on what I've seen, Jack Ma would ask himself the following question right now, or would ask his team the following question. Ask yourself these questions before you make this impactful decision for the customer.
Nice. I love the idea. I mean, that's gamification and learning. What I'd hope you could weave in, this is a paradox. It's a complex set of decisions, but it's based on 4 or 5 principles. And keep coming back, principle. Are you considering customers? Are you moving quickly? The second thing I hope you could weave in is, could I stop the game and get almost immediate feedback on how I'm doing?
Yeah.
Which I hope you could weave in. I just get feedback. I get data on what did I just do? What's the implication? What if I did another one? So that the learning becomes really real time.
I think AI will be a crucial part in giving the organization itself a personality. I think in the future, the organization itself will become an entity, and that'll be a game changer.
You know, it's interesting. I love that. I listen hard, and this is what I've been listening to. In HR, we do workforce planning. I think it's a mistake with AI. I think we have to do work task planning. And so I think you look at a job, the job of a teacher, the job of a software engineer, and we define the task, and then we look at how could that task be done? Inside person, outside person, AI. And I think AI is going to become an increasing And so what you do is you reconfigure work around the task, not around the person.
I would even say the task for me is a step two. It's not radical enough because that's just activity. If the HR guy says, what do you do? I recruit. No, I want to know what your impact is. The contribution.
I agree with
right?
that. I agree with that. But the point I want to try to drive is, I've seen workforce, what's your head count, where are they at, what are their skills. I think AI is going to become a piece like that head count, and our ability to interface with that. By the way, I don't understand this yet, so you're ahead of me on this one. But I think our ability to interface with that technology will become a critical part of work in the future.
And I think this is, for me, where it's really important, because people are paying attention to what you're saying, that right now we're missing a philosophical debate. Technology is getting ahead of us, right? That the people who are mindful haven't quite seen, I think, what the impact of AI will be. That if we treat AI like an extra pair of hands, we're not getting that we're creating life, not in the short term, not in the midterm, but AI will be conscious. It will be sentient. And the way we think about it now will make a difference if we'll end up in a 1915 Southern, the black sitting in the back of the bus, or what we're growing now literally will be our legacy as a species.
Yeah, I look forward to that, because I think AI will enhance not only the intellectual part of work, it'll enhance the physical part of work, it'll enhance all these pieces, and I don't understand that all the way yet.
All right, I think before this guy kills us.
Thank you.
It's been awesome. Let's do we have a shout out for Gary?
Hamill?
Yeah.
Gary Hamill, the biggest mistake you've made is you've just sold your condo in Salt Lake and you're moving again. And you should have stayed in Salt Lake, although I don't know where you're moving to. I hope you're doing well, Gary. You and I have common roots, if the roots of the tree matter, with CK. I have deep, deep affection for CK, as do you. And I appreciate the way that you think and the way you behave. Gary, you're an exceptional human being, and I hope we can go back to some of those writing things we worked on a couple of years ago. Gary, you're doing a great job.
Well, and I hope to have you in the car soon so we can bounce some of the stuff that we just touched on.
And Gary, the car ride is non-threatening, the cameras heat up, the car's old, and the driver is so-so. So good luck, Gary. Thanks. Good to connect.
What a great episode. And what comes to my mind is I'm just thankful. I'm thankful, Dave, that you took this ride with Heiko, and I'm thankful to both of you about the great conversation that you had, about all the insights that you shared, because Dave is known as an influencer for a reason. He definitely influenced my personal career, because when I started to work within HR in a big corporation, the one and only thing that was the hot topic was implementing the HR business partner model. And it was great because it fundamentally transformed the HR function. And I think that was needed. And it's great to see that, Dave, you just continue to evolve and be a forward-thinking person, because our world is adapting, and you adapted your view on HR, and it's amazing for me to see how all of your forward thinking directly ties into the Resourceful Humans technology. So I'm very thankful that you did this right, that you shared so many insights with us, and there's so much to learn from you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rewatch this episode again. Thank you so much.